All right, ladies and gentlemen. Shh. It's not services. You don't have to talk. Okay. So far, I don't know if anyone is online on Zoom. Welcome to the second lesson. And here we go, the Kabballah of Meaning. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. Beautiful crowd. Those who are here for the first time, welcome. Oh, Linda, you need a book? Someone here that's supposed to have a book has a book? Yes? Okay, awesome. So first of all, thank you everyone for coming and keeping me employed, which is important. And I do want to tell you that I do have to run right after the class. So if there are things that you want to discuss, we'll have to do it at a different time. So let us begin once again. Lesson number 2, to make or not to make meaning. This is a fantastic lesson. And it's really, really, really meaningful. Or not, as we'll see. So we'll begin with a fun exercise. We are on page 36. And you have it in your book, and we'll put it up on the board as well. These are two tools. I'm going to ask you, anybody know what any of these tools are? The one on the right or the left? Well, you have it in your book as well on page 36. What do you say? Okay, a hole punch, okay. A nutcracker. Which one? The one on the right? Okay. Candlestick? Okay. A candlestick, okay.
One of the safety.
Safety pin, okay. Okay, good. Banana holder, okay.
Banana holder.
All right. Okay. These are all great answers. I'm surprised that there was not even one person that knew exactly what it is, but I'll tell you later what it is. Anyway, don't worry, I didn't know either until I studied the course. I thought maybe someone would know. Anyway, okay, let's go on. For argument's sake, they tell the story. There was Chris, an Irish guy, comes with his Jewish friend to synagogue. And he sits down and he's watching everything that's going on. And he asks his friend David. He says, "David, what's going on now?" He says, "Well, you see now that they're going to begin the services." And he sees the cantor stands up. He says, "What's he putting on?" He says, "That's a tallis. It's a prayer shawl." Then they come to open up the ark. He says, "What are they doing?" They're opening up the ark, taking out the Torah. They open it up. It says, "What's that?" "That's a Torah scroll." After the reading of the Torah, they put it back. The rabbi stands up, says, "What's the rabbi doing?" He says, "The rabbi is going to give a sermon." The rabbi takes out a watch. He puts it on the table. He says, "Why did he put down the watch?" He said, "There's absolutely no reason for that." Okay. Anyway, anybody ever heard of the term YOLO? YOLO. You only live once. Okay. That's a catchphrase that was popular about 2 decades ago. Some also it also morphed into another term, the bucket list, which the bucket list comes from the term kick the bucket. You don't want to kick the bucket. Kicking the bucket, as we know, is a term for dying. And these are things that people do because they want to make sure that they could get everything done in their life, to make sure that I could achieve everything that I've wanted to in my life. Well, King Solomon, we're going to go back to him from Ecclesiastes. Those who missed last week, I suggest that you do watch the recording. It was sent in the email. If you didn't get the email, then send us an email and let us know that you didn't get the email. So make sure that you get on the email list. King Solomon says, text number 1a, I amassed, this is on page 38. I amassed great wealth. I built homes, planted vineyards. I designed gardens and orchards filled with every kind of fruit tree. I made reservoirs to water entire groves of trees. I acquired male and female servants and had more cattle, herds, and flocks than anyone before me in Jerusalem. I piled up silver and gold and treasures of kings and provinces. I brought in male and female singers and every luxury people they could desire, chests and chests of it. I became wealthier than anyone who came before me in Jerusalem, and still I had my wisdom. And I still had my wisdom. I didn't hold back from anything my eyes wanted. I didn't deny myself any pleasure. I took joy in everything I achieved, but in the end, that joy was all I really got from it. Then I looked back at all I worked for, everything I had built and gained, and it was all pointless, just chasing the wind, nothing truly lasting under the sun. This is not very encouraging. This is what they call in terms in psychology terms, they call it the hedonic treadmill. Hedonic treadmill means that we have things of happiness that are boosted by material success that are not permanent, and we quickly adapt and return to baseline because we realize, well, my Ferrari didn't make me happy. Let me try a Lamborghini. My vacation to the Caribbean wasn't as exciting. Well, let me try one to Alaska. Whatever it is, or you may enjoy it at the time, and then afterwards, well, it was good, but I know I want something that's a little different, a little more. And when you become used to it, it's a term that's called the hedonic adaptation, which means that you get used to the things that you, in other words, you have a set point, a level of happiness which is influenced by genetics or personality or something, and you say now, there's only so much that can make me happy. This is why we see that sometimes can see. This is why you see sometimes there are individuals that seem to be very, very wealthy, very successful seemingly, and sometimes they come to tragic endings. And you wonder, well, how could they not be happy? Look at the things that they had. Let's continue on. Remember, this is King Solomon. King Solomon was an individual who was well accomplished. Then he says, well, okay, so these things don't make me happy. Well, let me try maybe my wisdom. So text 1b, I turn my thoughts to understanding wisdom and also madness and foolishness. I saw that wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. This is a great line that we love to use, that light is better than darkness. A wise person sees where they are going, but a fool stumbles in the dark. But I also realized that the same fate awaits them both. So I thought, if I'll end up just like the fool, what's the point of being wise? I saw that this too is meaningless, because neither the wise nor the foolish are remembered for long. In time, both are forgotten, and in the end, the wise person dies just like the fool. That made me hate life. Everything happening under the sun seemed so pointless, just chasing the wind. This is kind of doom's talk from an individual like King Solomon. I mean, if you hear this from someone that's really having a hard time in life, or even some professor that decides to write an article in the New York Times, okay. But this is King Solomon we're talking about, okay? One of the most accomplished people in history, okay? He brought unprecedented peace to the land of Israel. He was extremely, extremely wealthy. He had an incredible wealth that he amassed, not only financially, but he had family, he had children, he had wives. He fortified the infrastructure, trade, military of the land of Israel. It was a high point for the land of Israel that almost historically had never seen since then. According to the Zohar, King Solomon's reign represented what we know as the full moon. Like you have the moon waxes and wanes. It's the same thing throughout Jewish history. So you want to know, when do we have a full moon? The time of King Solomon, we had the full moon. Everything was there. Everything was perfect. It was as perfect as it could be for the Jewish people. He would compose thousands of proverbs and songs, constructed the first holy temple. So we're not talking about someone that was only successful materially, but this is someone that had a lot of spiritual success. And comes the big question, why the doomsday talk? What was he missing? Text number 2, Nachmanides, the Ramban quotes this and says, he takes the quote from Ecclesiastes and says, futility of futilities, says Kohelet. Futility of futilities, all is futile. If another person has said this, we would have said they never amassed even 2 coins in their life. Yet they speak about the wealth of the world and declare futility. But Solomon, about whom is written, the king made silver in Jerusalem, is abundant as stones, is indeed suited to render all as futility of futilities. Behold, Solomon, the ruler, the powerful one, the wise, authored this entire book to render the whole world as meaningless and to tell us that everything is utterly futile. Well, you remember last week we said that there are 4 things that bring meaning to life. We're going to go through them again for those who don't remember. Number 1, we said you have to have personal growth. Number 2, we said you have to be humans have to have productivity. You have to be productive. You don't have a book? Oh. You don't have to take it out. I just want to make sure. Number three, you have to be giving. You have to be giving, right? We said if you just for yourself, then you'll feel meaningless. And then we said number 4, you have to have relationships. Now the truth is that when you look at these things, and some of you felt this perhaps last week, I don't have to go to a Kabbalah course for that. I could go to any self-help book and they'll pretty much tell me the same thing. So some of you felt, why is the rabbi wasting my time? But that's exactly why we have to ask the question, is there something more that's missing? Millennia later, a famed 19th century Russian novelist, Leo Tolstoy, he struggled with the similar questions. I'm not going to read this whole text. But he said, there's a few seats over here. You have 2 seats. Where's it going? Are you looking for a chair? I only have chairs here. I'll help them out. He said, I was asking these questions in life, questions that I couldn't answer. Said they seemed like such stupid, simple, childish questions, but as I touched them, I tried to solve them. And once I became convinced they are not childish and stupid, but the most important and profound life questions. And 2, that try as I would, I could not solve them. And he felt that he can't answer the questions to life. He couldn't understand. There's 2 seats over here available. And so he came to the conclusion, this individual, that he was at the brink of committing suicide. And I'm not going to go into his whole story, but the point is over here that this is a question that's asked by many, but moreover, we see it's asked by one of the most greatest and successful people of all time, King Solomon. Okay, any questions? Yes. King David was King Solomon, and the 2 things on the pictures, I'll get back to that. But we do find something very interesting. He wasn't just sort of grieving in his old age while he was sitting on the golf course and saying "Oi." But we see that there were actually issues with what happened in King Solomon's life. And how do we know that? What's the difference of of uh, of Abraham, which we just read yesterday in the Torah, that what was so significant about Abraham, not about what Abraham did, but the fact that he transferred that down to the children and for generations to come. You take a look at the children and the generations following King Solomon, it was quite detrimental to the history of the Jewish people. There were breakups, and it was actually not very exciting what happened to follow. So to give some context, we're going to turn to a beautiful story that it's a story that you all know, but we are going to point to some nuance in the story that perhaps maybe you did not realize. And this story is one that takes us back to time between the first and second temple, a story that has a holiday that we celebrate one day a year that's known to be the most joyous holiday, and that is the holiday of Purim. Very good. And to understand this, let's first take a look at this point over here before we get to the story of Esther, as I'm going to give you in a moment. But if someone were to ask me, Rabbi, can I live a meaningful life if I don't have a Jewish life, if I don't have the Torah? The answer is yes, you could find meaning in other ways. But the problem is that when you find meaning in other ways, they are subjective, which means they are meaningful to me. What is the first two letters of meaningful? Meaningful. It is how they make me meaningful. So for some people, it may be meaningful to acquire knowledge. For some, it may be meaningful to protect the environment. For some, it may be meaningful, as I said a story last week, to play bridge. For some, it may be meaningful to play golf. Someone actually answered, I sent out an email that said, is there meaning to golf? Someone actually gave me a long email response about why golf is meaningful to them. And that's fine. This is not to say that Judaism does not have anything to contribute, but today we're going to look at a completely different approach, because when we don't need Judaism to have a meaningful life. I can stumble on ideas that make me meaningful, but we're going to approach this in a different way, and to see that perhaps meaningful could actually in a certain way be a distraction to the true meaning in life. Now this is getting complicated. That's it. And so let's take a look at the story of Purim. Story of Purim. You all know the story. The king, he killed his queen Vashti. He was looking for a new queen, and her name was Esther. Esther, why was she called Esther? Because she was Haster. She was hiding herself. She didn't really give her true identity. She had an uncle named Mordecai. Mordecai was the spiritual leader of the Jewish people, and also happened to be now the uncle of the queen in the most powerful palace in the world. And now comes the decree from Haman. Boo! Haman. And who says that what? That he wants to destroy all the Jewish people. And now the one person who didn't actually know about this immediately was Esther. And Esther was told by one of her servants named Hassach. Let's take a look, text 4a. Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the written decree that had been circulated in Shushan, instructing him to show it to Esther and to urge her to go before the king to plead with him and beg for the lives of her people. Hathach went and delivered Mordecai's message to Esther. Esther then said to Atach and instructed him to relay her words to Mordecai. All the king's servants and all the people of the king's provinces know that anyone, man or woman, who enters the king's inner court without being summoned is subject to death, unless the king extends his golden scepter, granting permission to live. And I have not been summoned to the king in 30 days. Esther's message was conveyed to Mordecai. Mordecai sent back this reply to Esther: don't imagine that you of all Jews will escape just because you're in the palace. If you remain silent at this moment, relief and deliverance will come for the Jews from another source, but you and your father's house will perish. So he's trying to convince her to go to the palace, to go to the king. She says, it's a problem for me to go. He says, well, look, this, if relief and deliverance will come from another place, he says, don't think that you're going to be that you're going to be safe from this. This is not in other words, what he's saying in short, this is not in your best interest. It's not in your best interest to not follow through at this point. And clearly, with this argument, Mordecai was trying to convince her that it's going to be somewhat of a benefit to her, saying, this is your best option, and you should go. But then Mordecai doesn't suffice with that. And he adds another argument to her, which is perhaps one of the most powerful lines that can help us in our journey of meaning and life. And he adds one line in text 4b, and he says, Umi yodea, and who knows, im la'is kazois, perhaps you became queen for just this time as this. Maybe the entire reason you became queen was this. See, this is a different argument. The first one is saying your father's house could be lost. You don't know if you're going to be saved. You don't know what's going to happen to the people. As a matter of fact, it may be worse for you because you're in the palace. For others, they may have a place to run. They may have a place to hide. They may be able to fight back. And they may have other options. You're right there. You really have no choice. So you might as well do something to save yourself. The second line that he's saying is an objective one. And he's saying, it's not about you. It's about you are here because of your purpose that you are positioned here. The first one is about meaning, and the second one is about purpose. And this is a very significant difference. In other words, it's not about how I find myself beneficial. It's not about what I can do to make myself happy or what I can do to make myself even survive. But it's about what is my purpose? What is my calling? Why am I actually here? And he says, perhaps this whole story that happened was just for you to end up in the palace at this moment, at this time. And if you're missing that, you are missing your very reason that you exist. This was Mordecai's argument. Not that it's beneficial for her, which is the first one. Not only that it's beneficial for her, but the second argument is that it focuses on her purpose. Let's see text 4c. What does Esther respond? Esther said to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews who are found in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat and do not drink for 3 days, night and day. I too, along with my maidens, will fast alike. And I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, I will perish. Okay, so this is now a completely different message. Because what she's saying, you're right, it's not about me. If I perish, I perish. It's not about me. It is about my purpose. Second, I'm sorry, hold on. Of why I was created to begin with. And this is a very powerful message. Those on Zoom, you following me? You got me? So let's take a look for a moment and take a look at figure 2.1. The person in the sequence says, the person of meaning says, I happen to exist let me live a meaningful life. That is arbitrary. We can't attribute any meaning to life. Purpose is about the person. Something is needed. I am introduced to fulfill that need. So this is something that is inherent. There's an objective purpose to life. Okay, any questions? Yeah.
Why did they have to fast when they go? Why does she make all the other things?
Oh, I should have to fast because fasting is not about the fasting. It's about the prayer. It's about turning to God. And she realized that it's there's a decree which expressed a certain failure within how the Jewish people were acting at the time, and she realized that the way to receive the blessing, so to speak, of her being successful is if she is if she has the godly blessing with her, and that comes through the prayer and fasting, us turning back to God and saying, we are your people. Essentially, what she's saying, save your people, save Am Yisrael, and the answer to that is, okay, are you Am Yisrael? Well, how do you present that? And say, yes, we're God's people. We have to turn back to God to see that, and so that was actually very significant. And she said, not only is everyone else fasting, me too, because she said, even though looking weak, it may take away her beauty or her attraction, but she said it's not about that. It's about God's message coming through at this time, and so we have to turn to God at this time. Yes.
No.
Yeah. Well, I said that there was a guy that was telling me that golf is meaningful. That's exactly, but that's not an objective because not everyone likes golf. Okay. Yes.
This tour is great and it's in other spiritual traditions and in God would approve of this tour. So I'm trying to find out where Judaism,
Well,
or is
we're still barely getting through lesson 2. It's a 6-week course.
okay.
All right. So now we're going to go back. You wanted to know what are those two things? What's happening here? What are these two things? So actually, the one on the right is what they call a cherry pitter, or used for olives. You were close. And basically, what you do is you put the cherry in there, and you kind of get out the pits. And for those who are wondering how they do it, this is how they do it. The one on the left is an AI generated image of nothing. And that's why, of nothing, I said. It's an AI generated image. It doesn't really exist. And therefore, you could randomly imagine it to be anything that you want because it actually doesn't serve a purpose. So what are we trying to bring out here is that when something has an inherent purpose, even if you misidentify it as first, there is some reason for it. And once you look at it and you say, that makes sense. I understand what that's for. But if something does not really have an inherent purpose, then, you could do whatever you want. You can make it meaningful in some way, but there isn't really something that, of why that is. And so this is the true meaning of understanding of purpose. Why? Because if you want to search for meaning, you want to search for purpose in your life, if there was truly a result, if your existence is truly the result of just some random choice, and I'm just here amongst another 100, however many billion people there are in the world, and I'm just another little dot in that speck of people who happen to be here because, my parents got married and here I am. So then there is no purpose. You don't have a purpose for your existence. But if you believe that there is a purpose to existence, then there's something intentional, there's a reason you're here. And now I have to know, well, how do I live up to that purpose that God has given me? Lord Jonathan Sacks puts this wonderfully. He says, think about it. Every function that was once performed by religion can now be done by something else. In other words, If you want to explain to the world, you don't need Genesis, you have science. If you want to control the world, you don't need prayer, you have technology. If you want to prosper, you don't necessarily seek God's blessing, you have the global economy. You want to control power, you no longer need prophets, you have liberal democracy and elections. If you're ill, you don't need a priest, you can go to a doctor. If you feel guilty, you don't have to confess, you can go to a psychotherapist instead. If you're depressed, need faith, you can take a pill. Still need salvation, you can go to today's cathedrals, the shopping centers of Britain, or as one American writer calls them, weapons of mass consumption. Religion seems superfluous, redundant, de trop. Why then does it survive? The answer is simple, he says. Religion survives because it answers three questions that every reflective person must ask. Who am I? Why am I here? And how then shall I live? And this is the real questions that need to be asked when we talk about meaning. Meaning is not a question. The question is, what is my purpose? Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Do I have a purpose? And the answer that Judaism gives is yes, there is a purpose to the universe as a whole, and there is a purpose in every individual that is created for their specific reason. Text number 6. Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Cook said, before I was created, during all the limitless time that came before, there was nothing in the world that required me. I would have been needed for any purpose or task. I would have existed earlier. The fact that I was created until that specific moment is proof that there is no need for me until then. My existence was not necessary until it was. And when the time came, I was brought into the world to fulfill a role, to contribute something essential to the perfection of existence. As the famous saying goes, your birthday is the day that God says, I need you. And that's why, by the way, the Rebbe strongly encouraged celebrating birthdays. Because celebrating birthdays is a day which is like a personal Rosh Hashanah, personal day of reflection to say, why am I here? Which we'll talk about. So now, it's not just that I came into the world because life is empty, but there's something inherently purposeful. And so the question should not be a selfish approach of what do I find meaningful? Again, it starts with me, but what is my purpose in this world? Why do we do things that are for my purpose? What am I trying to fulfill? And the truth is that all of existence has purpose, and especially for a human. Rabbi Ezra Shachat was my teacher when I studied 2 years in the great city of Los Angeles. He heads the yeshiva there, and he wrote. He was aspiring to greatness. He is one of the great minds, really one of the great minds on Chabad, but beyond. And he heard about some great scholars, some great prodigies, and he says, I don't see myself. He was feeling a little down. I don't see myself reaching that level, which in truth he did, but he didn't see himself that way. And he wrote this letter to his teacher, to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe responded to him, a rather sharp letter saying, your job is not to see what you can inspire to. Your job is, Ani nivreitzi l'shamesh eskani. God created me to serve my master. And so your job is to study, to learn, and to become as great as you can be. The hostage, Eli Sharabi, I think he came out with a book now. He was asked about if he had any PTSD, and he said, he went to a counselor, and he said like this. He said, they broke my ribs, they broke my bones, but they couldn't break my soul. And he said, I went to a therapist, and they tried to make him convert to Islam, etc. And he said, I went to a therapist, and they said they couldn't believe a man that went through what he went through, and they don't see any level of PTSD in this individual. Because by him, he said, right now I'm in this place. It's a horrible place. It's a horrible dungeons, the underground of Hamas. But he said, I know that right now God wants me here at this time, at this place, and I'm going to do my best to be strong and to survive in this moment.
That's me.
Yes, it is. I know he came up with a book. I think it's in Hebrew. Anyway, he said, now, imagine if you have a beautiful Picasso piece of art that you have. It could be worth thousands of dollars, and you need to use it in some way. So one way you could say is I could hang it on the wall. The other you could say is I'll use it as a cutting board. They could be used for a cutting board, but that would not serve its purpose. And so when someone, for example, since everyone likes to talk about money, we'll talk about money. If someone wants to say, I have money, so what should I do with it? That's not the question. The question we should be asking is, why do I have the money that God gave me? However that is, however much I was blessed with. Not, I have this now what should I do with it? But why do I have it in the first place? There must be a reason that I was blessed with this, and now I must do something of why I have this to begin with. That's, of course, one example. Figure 2.2. With me, I'm looking for something meaningful, and I determine what meaning is before me, purpose. For me, there is a reason I'm here in general or in any given situation. That's how it begins. It ends with me. I'm reading this wrong. With meaning, it begins with me. I'm looking for something meaningful, and I determine what meaningful is. With me, success is determined by whether or not I found it to be meaningful. When it's a purpose, so before me is the reason I'm here in general, a given situation, and it's beyond me, success is determined whether or not the need is filled. I know I did what I could to fulfill my mission, to fulfill my job that God has given me. I'm going to read a story that's about a chassid of the first Chabad Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi. He was a wealthy man, and he had tried to be very charitable. He helped many who needed help in different things, especially with marrying off their children. We call achnasas kala, giving for weddings. And he lost everything and became deeply distraught because he wasn't able to give what he had wanted. So let's read text number 7. He traveled to the Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and poured out his heart with many tears and deep anguish. If God has seen fit to afflict me with poverty, I accept the judgment, he said. But how can I, God forbid, remain in debt and fail to repay? How can I not fulfill the promises I made to my family and my relatives and my daughter's weddings? I made those promises back when I was wealthy. According to our holy Torah, I had every right to make those commitments. If I now fail to keep them, it will be a desecration of God's name. He cried over the great punishment that he was being made to endure. With great emotion, he begged the Rebbe to arouse abundant mercy on his behalf and from the source of true compassion and kindness, that he might repay his debts and fulfill his promises. After that, he said, I'll accept whatever poverty has decreed upon me. He ended his words. He said, Rebbe, I need to repay all my debts. I need to give my relatives and family members what I promised them. I need to provide for the weddings of my 2 daughters as I promised them. And now how does the Rebbe respond to this seemingly fair request? The Rebbe was leaning on his holy arms in a deep spiritual absorption, listening to the man's cries and pleas. After some time, the Rebbe lifted his holy head and, still absorbed in the intense spiritual state, said, You speak of what you need, but you say nothing about why you are needed. The previous Rebbe tells the end of the story, and he says, this permeated him so deeply that he fell into a faint. He fainted right there on the spot. Chassidim had to drag him out and revive him. When he woke up, he didn't talk to anyone. He didn't ask anyone anything. He immediately went to the study hall. He began studying as much as he can. And a few days later, he was ready to go home. The Rebbe summoned him, blessed him to become wealthy again with everything that he needed. So let's analyze the story for a minute. This was clearly a good man, a charitable man, a generous man. He wanted to help others. He wanted to give to others. And all he was asking was, can I, let me just do what I promised, and that's it. And then, God could do with me whatever he wants. So the Alter Rebbe was challenging him and saying, the premise is wrong. Because the premise starts with one letter. What's the letter that it's starting with? I need, I want, they're good things that you want, but it's still the I. He said, it's not what do I need? Saying, why am I needed? If God gave you the help at that time, it's so that you could use it in the right way. And now that you don't have it, it's for a different purpose. So it doesn't mean that he was doing was wrong. What he was doing was right. But the preface was wrong. The assumption was wrong. And with this, he got a renewed life. His worries faded. He was filled with joy. Because it wasn't that his salvation changed, it wasn't that his situation changed. It was that he changed. He was a different person. He realized that it's not about what I want, but it's about what am I needed for. And he developed a kinship with a group of his fellow. There was a chassid. His name was Remendel Futterfass. In post-World War II days, he was imprisoned in Siberian labor camp because he was part of a horrible mafia group called Jews. And he did horrible things like teaching in underground secret yeshivas and having secret synagogues where they would pray together and do all kinds of horrible Jewish stuff. Anyway, he was placed into prison. In a Russian gulag. And there are all kinds of professionals there who are also part of the counter-revolutionary movement. Some of them may have been professionals, intellectuals, scientists, doctors, etc., who are all considered a threat to the regime, to the communist regime. And they became friendly. These were smart men. These were smart people. They became friendly. They would talk together. And they said to him, I don't understand. How could you always be so happy? We lost everything. The scientist says, I was a scientist. I no more could have that. The doctor says, I was a doctor. I no more could have that. He says, why are you always so happy? You probably had nothing, and that's why you're happy. He says, no, actually, I had a successful business. He had a successful business. He says, I'm happy because my goal in life is to serve God, whatever and wherever I am. And that's what I'm doing. Over here, I'm serving God. Back there, I'm serving God. This is where God wants me to be. I actually met this man, Remendel, when I was a young boy. He came to my house. He used to collect funds for the yeshivas in Israel. An incredible man. But this is a great lesson. And wherever I am, I'm doing what I am because I'm serving God. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
One thing God's man was, reason for being was to give those people away, this or that. What if he warrior is doing this?
So perhaps he was, but he didn't, but he had the wrong attitude. The Rebbe wasn't telling him you're wrong. He was telling him that you have to change your attitude. Because if that was his purpose, he wouldn't become upset when things change. He would say, now maybe I have to serve God in a different way. Now maybe there's something else that's expected of me. But he was basically saying, this is what I want to do. I want to be a good person. That's good. It's good you want to be a good person, but it's I want to be. That's not that's not ultimately fulfilling your purpose at that moment and at that time. It's a different approach. It's not. We're not gonna. We're not going to haggle with the specifics of that particular story. But the point is the lesson from the story. Yes.
what it's like to be on the other side, not having the money and how to react. Like,
Right, for 100%. Right. 100%, 100%. You mentioned before the class, you told me about Mr. Rohr, who's one of the sponsors of this George Rohr. I once heard George Rohr speak, and he said Sammy was his father. The incredible charitable people. And he said I once heard him speak, and he says, and by the way, the family is also responsible for helping us purchase this building as well. So we owe a lot of that to them. Um, but he was once saying that the word philanthropy is comes from the word philanthropic, which means to make you feel good about doing good things. He said that that's different than the word charity. Tzedakah, I'm sorry, the word tzedakah, which means righteousness. In other words, righteousness means I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Philanthropy means I'm doing it because it makes me feel good about doing. And they play that out in their lives tremendously. Okay, let's continue on. You have a nice lesson here. Jonathan Sachs takes from a football game, but to him it's not football. To him it's what we call soccer. And the idea is that that there's a logic of the system. There's rules of football. In other words, the rules come before the game. When you're in the game, you don't necessarily feel that way. You have to go out of the game in order to see what are the rules of the game. I'll let you read that text on your own, but let's continue. We're gonna pause for a. Actually, we have some time, so let me read it. Take a game like football. By the way, this works with American football too. They say that a man once brought his wife to a football game reluctantly. She wasn't interested in going, and so finally she said, "All right, I'll go. It makes you happy. I'll go to the football game." It's Sunday. We should talk about football, right? She said, "Okay." After the game, he asked, "So how was it?" He said, "It was a really nice game. I just don't understand why they're arguing so much about 25 cents." And he says, "What do you mean arguing about 25 cents?" He said, "In the beginning of the game, they took a quarter, they flipped the quarter. Then the whole game I hear, get the quarterback, get the quarterback." Okay. All right. For those who know football, know what I'm talking about. Um, I'm just going to skip to the second sentence here, text 8, the second paragraph. There's internal logic of the system, the rules of football, but the meaning of the system lies elsewhere. It can only be understood through some sense of the wider human context in which it is set. To do this, you have to step aside the system, to step outside the system to see why it's brought into being. There's a way of understanding the meaning of football by merely knowing its rules. They tell you how to play the game, but not why people do so and why they invest their passions they do. The internal works of the system do not explain the place the system holds in human lives. The meaning of the system lies outside the system. Therefore, the meaning of the universe lies outside the universe. Only something or someone outside the universe can give meaning to the universe. Okay, we're going to watch a little video that portrays this in a cute way, what we just read.
right. Yeah, that's healthy. Mhm. Ryan, what's the meaning of life? Noted. Moving along. What's the son? That's it? Maybe person? son said, Barbara, look, you do because of me anything.
It's in my mind. You just cut it off.
I give up. What is it?
What do you? See the circle's meaning. Your answers were clever. Not that I intend. You would think. True.
Little video. These videos are available online as well. If you want to watch it, then share it as well. You can do that. Okay. So now let's get to understanding. So what is it exactly? So let's begin with text number 9. Alpayim Shana, the Medrash tells us, Alpayim Shana, the Torah's existence in the world by 2,000 years, the Torah comes before the world. Now you ask, that's obviously, how does that make sense? I mean, how can 2,000 years before the world have a story of Abraham, have a story about Exodus? So obviously this is a metaphorically, that means that the ideas of the Torah is that which shapes the world. In other words, Torah conceptually precedes the world. It's not a part of creation, but it's from beyond the system. As we gave the example of the football, the rules, you have to have the rules that create. Torah is like the blueprint of the world. Our quest for the ultimate meaning leads in the Torah. So if you want to know how do we build our life, so that's like building a home, you have to have the blueprint. So you have to look at the blueprints of life. Torah is the blueprint of life. That's it is the Torah. Torah is the okay. There's Torah is not limited, but we'll leave it at that for now. But for our discussion, Torah coming 2,000 years before the world means that Torah is the ultimate system, which is the blueprint for the world. So at some point of projecting, at some point we take on a project of curating a comfortable, meaningful life, it's ultimately going to collapse under its own weight. We talk about meaning, and how could it end up that you could have a student, a Jewish student, who goes and yells, "Free Palestine," and you wonder how could it be that it comes to that? And perhaps, these kids are taught their whole life. Their parents, they're obviously very, their parents are very well to do. They send them to high end schools. And what are they told? They're told the meaning of life is to go to college. Why should you go to college? You can make money. Why should you make money? So you could buy things, and so that you could have kids and send them to college. Why should they go to college? So that they could get a job, make money, and send their kids to college. And so they say there must be more. And what do they hear? They hear the down the block. The Justice for Palestine says, "I'll give you something meaningful to life." Just a thought. So this is what it means, that eventually it collapses under its own weight, because society prioritizes its pleasures and freedom in pursuit of meaningful channels, and eventually cannot hold together. We have to, with no higher calling, with no deeper obligation, the objective for reason being here, we can float through freely, but it's going to drift away. We learn this from the story of Rabbi Akiva. Text number 10. Once the wicked Roman government issued a decree forbidding Jews from studying Torah. Papis ben Yehuda, came to Rabbi Akiva, who was publicly gathering groups and teaching Torah. He said to him, "Akiva, aren't you afraid of the authorities?" Rabbi Akiva replied, "Let me tell you a parable. A fox was walking along a river and saw a fish darting back and forth. He said to them, "Why are you fleeing?" They answered, "From the nets that people have cast for us." Said the fox, "Why don't you come out onto dry land and live with me, just as your ancestors lived with mine?" The fish said to him, "Are you the only one they call the cleverest of animals? You're not clever, you're foolish. If you're in danger, even here, in the place that gives us life, how much more so we live it for a place where we can't survive." Same is true for us, Rabbi Akiva concluded. For a risk of even while studying Torah, the source of our life, as it says, "For as our life in length of the days, how much worse it would be if we abandon it." So Rabbi Akiva is saying that if we want to have any life, we need the Torah, because that is our source of life. And so Rabbi Akiva is saying that, yeah, you may be able to find meaning in other places, art, service, nature, learning, volunteering. There's all kinds of good things. But he says that you're not going to find your purpose in life. You want to find purpose? That is something where you have to stay where you live, like a fish that lives in the water. Torah isn't a meaningful option. It's one which is imbued with your purpose in life. And the modern world's prescriptions and boundaries and safety, they're saying you're on dry land already. Let me show you how to manage while you're on the dry land. The fish says, "No, I'm not going to the dry land, because there's lack of survival there." And so meaning could end up leaving some emptiness. And you end up with, what's the point of this all? And this circles back to our original text in the beginning. The text of King Solomon and Koheles. King Solomon tried it all. Wealth, wisdom, pleasure, creativity. He had everything. Anything that a human being could have ever wanted. And he succeeded. He was a successful man. But after everything, what does it say? Self davar, in the end of the matter. After everything considered. After everything is considered, revere God and keep his commandments, because that's what it means to be human. So the Torah, the wealth, the wisdom, spirituality, relationships, legacy, this is all dry land. If you want to have life, you want to have your life, not dry land, but to go to the Torah, that is where the life is. And we're able to see? Spirituality. Yeah. But by the way, for those who want to see this, it's available as well online. And the website which I showed you. So what does he say? He said, "Revere God and keep his commandments, because that's what it means to be human." This is what King Solomon is saying in Ecclesiastes. He says, we're not here to chase experiences. We're here to fulfill a mission. When we live that way, no matter where we are, whether it's a palace, a prison, a place of loss, place of joy, at the end, they say, what am I, not what do I need to be happy, but what am I here for? How can I live right now? So now we know that we have to look for purpose. Now we know we have to look for meaning. But if purpose lies outside the system, if it comes from the creator rather from the creation, then the only place to find it is with Torah, as we said. Torah is just one path amongst many for building a meaningful life. It is a blueprint, as we said, for building a meaningful life. And so that's why we need to turn to the Torah to find that meaning. And so now you're going to ask me the main question, which is, okay, fine. Rabbi, you say I need to find my purpose, but can you tell me what my purpose really is? I know that's what you're all thinking, right? So for that, I'm going to have to ask you to pay another $100, and but that will be discussing in the upcoming lesson, which is going to be lesson 3. You'll have to wait 2 weeks to get to that. Questions? Yes. Yes, but what is your personal purpose? There's a lot of aspects to that. The question is, how do we find their personal purpose? Anyone else? Okay. Not a lot of questions today, I see.
Well,
Rabbi, where is the website? I came a little late. Is that JLI website?
Okay. One second. Somebody wants to know what the website is. It's about 10 times in your book published in the back page and the front page. myjli.com/TKOM. myjli.com/TKOM. Look at the back page of your book, and it's in about the end of every lesson. Yes, you got another.
studying, we had all the answers, we could say. Maybe we're not supposed to know everything, the meaning of everything. Is that a possibility? The purpose.
It's a possibility. We'll talk about it all. Yes.
You said that we about not getting enough. Meaning that here or this space, you went right. Although never,
We'll never get it done.
now,
Well, but the question is, can I do what is meant of me to get done?
me is how the Torah has expected us to live in this time, in this space that we are here in.
Okay. Yes.
Our purpose can change.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. As I said, we will talk about this more in 2 weeks from now. Next week there's no class. Let's go over the key points.
Okay, or occupant. 1. The question about searching for the meaning of our lives is a distraction. Meaning is subjective. It refers to anything I deem to be enriching, inspiring, and beneficial. There's a more important question we need to answer. What is our purpose? Purpose is objective. It focuses on what I am needed for at any given moment, irrespective of personal feelings, preferences, and wants. 2. God created us intentionally. Though our lives are inherent purpose, there is a mission that precedes our coming into the world. And Judaism wants us to ask, what is my purpose? Rather than just, what do I want? 3. Purpose is dependent on circumstance, because if God put us in a certain situation, there is certainly purpose in it for us. 4. Purpose can't be discovered from inside the system. It must come from outside the system. Only from beyond existence can we find the purpose for which the entire system was established. The Torah, conceptually, it sees the world. It is not part of creation. It is from beyond the system. 5. Society that prioritizes pleasure, freedom, even if pursued through meaningful channels, count them together. No higher calling and no objective reason for being here. We inform them freely, and meaning disappears. Was Jew. Torah is the only space where our soul can imbibe light-sustaining purpose.
So we'll see you all, God willing, in 2 weeks. This was the website, myjli.com/TKAOM, the Kabballah of Meaning. And we'll see you, God willing, in 2 Sundays from now. Thank you, everyone that joined us. And let's end this. Oh, you had 2 questions there. Let me see in the chat. Sound is very delayed.